Greetings, bones and ghouls, and welcome back to indieween! There's gonna be a snack time like any second now. It's probably gonna happen earlier in the video. But in the meantime, it's that spooky time of year where in order to conquer our fears of the AAA price bloat, we go and find ourselves a bunch of indie games whose prices all total up to the price of a single one of those 200 gigabyte shader hellscapes. And yes, I am accounting for the recent price increases from $60 to $70 and even sometimes $80. I've got plenty of indie to spare. We're also sticking it to all those slop delivery services by doing a cooking segment each video that features a new meal prep recipe you can try out for yourself, and I will have all of them up on the Patreon for free for everyone. You don't need an app or a service. You are good enough to use your own stove, and I believe in you. Now today at a sleek $8.99, we've got a game that self-describes as an anxiety simulator. There's a gun in the office. Geez, that name alone might get me into a bit of trouble with like ad suitability or whatever, but it's not like this is a channel where we make a joke about the existence of gun. And I've got the Patreon. In There's a Gun in the Office, you play as an unnamed protagonist who is trapped in an apartment and needs to carefully plan their escape. Your plan is that, well, there's a gun in the office. That'll probably solve your problems. In the meantime, though, you need to be extremely careful with your actions, because while your captors are out for most of the day, any sign you've managed to get out of your room is going to end extremely poorly for you. Let's talk about the gameplay. Hey, you know how sometimes games will have those memory puzzles as a time waster to make sure that you can't get through a game in 2 hours? Or less than 2 hours, I should say? What if there was a game that was built around those, but they were very high effort and actually good? Like, on one hand, I feel bad about making this comparison in the first place, but this is basically that one super time waster and part of that one Garten of Bonbon game. I couldn't be bothered to look up which one, but I'll throw the footage up on the screen right now as I record this. But yeah, it's a lot like that, but good. The premise of There's a Gun in the Office is that whatever is happening to the player character, they have managed to get their hands on a copy of the key to their room, and if they want to escape this place, they have to make sure that their captors absolutely do not find out they have that key. You need to be keeping track of every last action that you do. Every key you picked up, every door you opened, every last little action you take needs to be remembered because you need to undo them before your captors return. That means putting keys back exactly where you found them, making sure you remember which lights were left on and off when you first got out of your room, and any trace of you being outside of your room is covered up. You have a watch, or at least part of a watch, to help you keep track of time, and you'd better be back by the time your captors are expected to return. Thank goodness that in spite of everything, whoever's keeping you in this room has a very consistent schedule. This game world is literally just the apartment you're trapped in. It's a decently sized apartment by real world standards, but it's also a very small game world. The first couple of levels of this game are going to be literally just your room, the hallway, and a bit of the kitchen, and snack time. We are so on top of it. Hey, don't get gobbling yet. Sprinkles deployed. You're so on our stuff today. I totally did not start recording all this and realize I had audio playing on my computer that was polluting the recording audio. Well, where were we? It works though. It adds to the claustrophobic sensation of being trapped, that there's so much you've got to do in such a little space. You're playing that memory game, but at the same time, you're also doing the hardcore version of an escape room. Your mind's got to find a way to divvy up all the processing power it has between memorizing every little action you've taken, managing your time so that you can undo all those actions later, and looking around to find things that can help chip away at your prison. You're a rat in a trap. If that trap was big and spacious, it would be a whole lot less scary, so the trap is small. Also, thank goodness the apartment isn't some kind of cavernous monstrosity, because sometimes I could barely make it back to my room before my captors came back without having to cross large distances. And this is also before we start trying to sneak out at night, which, when you gotta do all that stuff previously mentioned, but now you're doing it in pitch darkness. Finally, just to get an idea of the difficulty factor across the whole game, there will be a fair share of restarts as you find that sometimes all the time it took you to figure out how to do one specific task will leave you unable to accomplish the others you needed. I actually had another silly gamer brain moment where I got absolutely stumped on a late game day, and as I was starting to worry, I had encountered a game-breaking bug, which it turns out, spoiler alert, I did not. After a bunch of tries and looking for something that's usually consistently in one area and it just wasn't there, I looked for walkthroughs and found about what I expected. A small handful of quote-unquote achievement guides and walkthroughs that were actually just people mislabeling their Let's Plays, and surprise, surprise, half of them didn't even get to the middle of the in-game week and stopped well before the part I needed help figuring out. The ones that did also had the item I kept being unable to find in the exact same spot, so after closing my game and restarting a few times, I swallowed my pride and, in so many words, messaged the dev saying, "Hey, I did this, this, and this. Is this a bug?" It was not. Short answer, gamers never look up. I had to do this before in that Dreamspring video. In a weird way, I'm kind of happy this has happened again. Indieween, and frankly my channel as a whole lately, is all about finding the off the beaten path stuff, and I'm out here playing games that are so niche they don't even have any of the usual suspects camping on the Google search results with basic walkthroughs or Q&A stuff. That means I must be doing something right. I take an odd sense of pride in how sometimes I'll be the only actual review or showcase of whatever game I'm doing among the handful of those walkthroughs in the YouTube search results. Time for our meal prep cooking segment. This time we're going to revisit something I did a few years back, which I wrote off as a quick and dirty segment to fill out the cooking segment roster of a Halloween in July. Chicken quarters and rice. This is one of my staple meal preps as it's really cheap, it's high protein, and very modular. You'll know what I mean in a sec. The cornerstone of this recipe are those 10-pound bags of chicken quarters. You can find these at basically any grocery store ever. They're usually off to the side in the fridge tubs away from the name brand stuff. These are sold by weight and have anywhere from 8 to a full dozen quarters in them. So what we're gonna do is at the very start of this, before we measure out anything else, we're going to count our quarters and process the chicken. This is a pretty straightforward thing, even if it's a little scary at first if you've never broken down meat before, and I'll admit that part of why I'm rehashing this is because I wanted to show I've at least improved somewhat by doing this. Also, trigger warning, I guess. I know some people get a little uncomfortable about this sort of thing. First order of business is to separate the leg from the rest of the thigh, which is usually at an angle more than you expect, but still one cut between the joints. Now, we want to get the rest of the meat off the ribs and thigh bones. First, remove any excess bits like the part on the ends and like the loose skin, and then we're going to debone. Sometimes you can just pull the thigh bone right away from the rest of it, but otherwise you just need to make a little cut at what I think are the tendons or something, and then gently pull the bone away once it's free. Then make another cut, using the ribs as a guide to get the rest of it off. Once that meat is away from all the bones, you can usually just peel the skin right off. Don't forget to save everything you've cut off, because even if there's only little bits of meat left over on the bones, this is a better source of flavor for making broths and stocks than anything you can buy in the store. Get all the meat onto a parchment-lined baking sheet, lightly oil them, and add some seasonings. I like lemon pepper or Lawry's. Set the oven to 400 Freedom heat units or 205 Funny Baguette units and let that cook for half an hour. Okay, let's get everything else done. Rice is simple even if we're doing some extra stuff to it. Portion your rice out according to how many portions you have and how many carbs you want per portion based on what you yielded, and rinse thoroughly with a mesh strainer over the sink. Then cook it according to your bag or your rice cooker's instructions. Once that's underway, we're going to take a couple things of cilantro, or if you've got that funny taste gene, some parsley, rinse it, and chop it up real fine. It helps to just twist off the bulk of the stalks in the sink so you don't have to separate that stuff later. Once the rice comes out, we're going to fluff it, transfer it to a bowl, and then we're going to mix in our cilantro with a healthy amount of lime juice. I'm using the bottled stuff here, but if you want to go hardcore and squeeze all those limes yourself, don't forget to add some zest too. Mix thoroughly and divvy up into all your intended portions. Now for this one, we're also going to cook up some beans, which, as you guessed it, just do according to the bag's instructions. You don't need to reinvent the wheel for every recipe. We also have a bunch of chopped celery stalk left over from the next video's recipe, so we're going to lightly saute that with a bit of oil and salt before mixing in with the beans and adding that to each portion with the rice. Hey, look at that, everything's ready for the chicken to go in. Okay, so you're never gonna guess this, but what comes next is that once the chicken is done and had a sec to cool and we've temped it out to make sure it's good, we're gonna place this on top of the rice and beans, and thanks to those 10-pound bags, this is like the cheapest thing you can do. I've never seen them go for more than 10 bucks. Even with all the scraps you'll get repurposed into later, this is like some of the best like meat per dollar you can get. And it's even easier than the pasta with sausage. Heck, just like that pasta, you can skip most of this recipe too by just throwing the whole chicken quarters into the oven and making getting the meat off the bone future use problem. Although you will need larger containers if you're going to do that. Also, the modularity here is a huge plus. Well, I did 1 chicken quarter broken down, which yielded me a dozen portions. You can do like other things if that's too many containers in your fridge for you. For instance, lately I've been doing these with a yield of 6 portions by putting 2 legs and thighs into each and only doing a half cup of rice as my starch to go with it. And that's a good amount of protein right there. Remember that take everything that you're going to do, once it's cooled down, put it in the fridge to cool. Then once it's cold to the touch, put everything except what you're going to eat in the next 2 days into the freezer, and then when you eat one from the fridge, take one that you put in the freezer and put it into the fridge to thaw out so that it's ready by the time you're going to eat another. And as always, these meal prep recipes are available on Patreon with a standalone video and full recipe for free at patreon.com/charlatanwonder. If you want to pledge, just think of it as taking the money you save from learning to do this yourself and passing me a little bit of thanks, but you don't have to. It's totally cool. Now let's get back to our little room. Time for the Spookies. There is a gun in the office. Thrives on the sense of anxiety being put into this situation gives you. You're literally listening for footsteps and waiting to be sure that your captors are gone for the day. You're checking to remember where you found each key, like exactly where it was. Slight noises like other people in the building using the elevator can set you off like no other because God forbid you lost track of time. It's been a long time since a game gave me anxiety like this, and now that I think of it, I probably didn't have to play this at midnight while being over-caffeinated to get the desired effect. This game knows that it's got you trapped, and knows that the best jump scare it can possibly do is having a random telemarketer call the house phone right as you're walking past it. There's other stuff too. I don't exactly know what's happening to the player character or why they're being held prisoner in this apartment, but there's some unsettling stuff. There's a lot of imagery in the cutscene showing surgical tools and needles before the days start. Those look like stock footage, by the way, and I'm not saying that in a derogatory sense. This is about as indie as you can get, and sometimes that's what your budget gets you. I'm saying this more in a sense that I cannot show you them because while There's a Gun in the Office has license to use these clips, Charlatan Wonder does not have that license, so that's a no-go for me. Moving on though, a lot of unsettling things are found around the apartment. A wheelchair and some other medical supplies you'd only normally see in a hospital are hidden in the utility closet. There's a lot of medicine, and a whole bag of somebody's blood in the pantry. And you know the whole aspect that you're being kept a prisoner in the spare bedroom? There's a bit of musical stings here and there that act as musical cues and a bit of a jump scare to ratchet up the tension, and sometimes you also get these strange hallucinations. I don't know what they are, but sometimes you'll see a bit of stuff that you found in the hospital in your room. All the more reason to get out of this place. By the way, I hope y'all bear with me for a bit. I've been recording like all day, and I actually had to redo this video, and I'm just sitting here cooking in this jacket. So we're gonna take this off for a bit. I hope I'm not too sweat stained here. I've been going at it. Oh boy. I am a large, sweaty dude. Okay, I guess we can do a quick little rundown of the story as a little treat, but I do mean quick. Most of what's going on was just explained in the Spookies. I'm not even sure I'm gonna do spoilers aside from telling you that there are 3 endings you can get. The rest of it is that you carefully sneak through the house while your captors are out, taking pains not to leave any evidence whatsoever that you were out, and get your hands on the namesake gun in the office. And what you do with it is up to you, but gun means freedom no matter how you slice it. My final thoughts on There's a Gun in the Office is that it's a small game, but it's as big as it needs to be and carries a lot more fear and anxiety than most spooky games. It's scarier than a lot of games that make a big fuss about how freaky of a monster they can make with their big fancy engines, and instead it opts for anxiety and keeping stuff in the player's head, letting the player's mind play tricks on them. It's a short experience, but it's one worth having. Let's review our total for indieween so far. We started at Zero Protocol at $11.99, Brush Burial at $6.99, Heartworm and Tower of Kalamanvo at $14.99 each, I'm not even cutting that out. Velvedek at $10.99, and now There's a Gun in the Office brings us with $8.99 to a total of $68.94. Look at that, we got 6 games for the lower end price of a new AAA game. Next video, we're going to get it right up to the $80 mark with a 7th game for a total of $78.93. Now, if that isn't sticking it to the slop industrial complex, I don't know what is. Thank you all so much for joining me on indieween thus far. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, leave a comment about your own personal anxiety hellscapes below, and just like the game, don't forget to subscribe to see the next indieween video, and do that hyping stuff too, however that works. Let's sign off. Remember that no matter what you do, be it parlor beads, car restoration, glass blowing, or little doodles in a sketchbook you carry around, that it should never be considered content. It is art. Content is a word that in recent years has been twisted into being a means of taking all your skills, passions, and aspirations and reducing them down to a gray sludge meant for nothing more than to make a line go up at your expense and some suit's benefit. Your art in no way deserves that because art is sacred. Art is innately a reflection of its own creator by the very act of its creation, and in no way do you deserve to be reduced down to content. So get out there and fight for yourself by fighting for your art and against the contentification of everything. Stay sassy. Ooh, look at this boy. He in the narrow box. Tonkatsu. Kot. You just living your best narrow box life. Like, you got your wobble sticking out kind of at the end. Okay, it's not as bad as it used to be. You're definitely getting skinnier. Having a good sniff? Oh, right by all the shoes with all their smells. This is like the ideal box for you right now. It's usurped like the yogurt box. Why are you glancing around like this? What threat might come while you are in the instant ramen box? I guess it's a big enough threat to where you're heading out to the kitchen. Or are you looking for snacks? His food should dispense in like an hour. Snack time will happen soon.